I'm Kate, guest designer for Sally Tomato, and today we're going to be making the Kayte bag. This bag was designed with lots of pockets both inside and out, so it's great to load up. So let's get started with your beautiful Kayte bag.
First, gather your supplies. You'll need a piece of main fabric, 2 contrast fabrics. One could be a woven and the second a faux leather fabric such as I'm using. Then you'll need a piece of lining fabric and a fusible woven interfacing, sew-in foam such as Bosal Inner Form, and a heavy stabilizer. I'm using the Bosal Craft Tex. Be sure to review the recommended fabrics on the back of your pattern cover. Then measure and cut all the pieces you'll need following the pattern cutting instructions. This bag does have a lot of pieces, so you may find it helpful to label them while cutting them by marking the name on the wrong side of each piece with a removable pen or chalk. Then gather the hardware that you'll need: purse feet, magnetic closures, an invisible sew-in bar magnet, rectangle rings, medium and small rivets, and then you'll also need 3 zippers. I'm going to add a handmade label and a sassy tassel to my bag, but these are completely optional. Sally Tomato makes it easy for you to begin the artistic process for your bag by offering hardware and zippers in 5 metal colors: nickel, gold, gunmetal, antique, and rose gold. Organize a few helpful tools near your work and sewing areas. You'll need rotary cutter or scissors, sewing clips, pins, chalk or removable marking pen, basting spray, basting tape or glue, stiletto, zipper or narrow foot, a rotary punch, and rivet setting tools. If you're using lighter weight woven fabrics, center and fuse interfacing to the wrong side of coordinating main contrast fabric pieces. Remember to position and fuse the interfacing to the wrong side of the zipper pocket facing. Center the heavy stabilizer on the wrong side of your contrast base piece. Use basting spray or basting tape to hold the stabilizer securely in place. The stabilizer is cut smaller than the base, so it doesn't get caught in the seam in a later step. The firmness of the stabilizer helps support the base of your bag, keeping it from sagging over time. Finally, after all that preparation, I think we're ready to sew. Insert a top stitch needle and set the stitch length to 3.5 millimeters. You may find a walking foot or Teflon foot is helpful for sewing laminated cotton, waxed canvas, cork, and full leather fabrics. Top stitch 3/8 inch from the cut edge of the stabilizer. Now center the foam base piece on the wrong side of the contrast base piece, covering the heavy stabilizer. Place 1 foam piece on the wrong side of each main and side panels, aligning all the edges. Use basting spray or sewing clips to hold these layers together. Since basting stitches aren't going to show, you can lengthen the stitch up to 5 millimeters if you'd like. Baste all 4 edges of the main and base panels with 1/4 inch allowances. Be sure to attach foam to the side panels as well, which I did off camera. Next, you can trim away the excess foam from the seam allowances on all those pieces. This will help reduce bulk when you assemble the bag. Next, you'll follow your pattern to mark the placements for the purse feet. Snip or punch small holes approximately 1/8 inch in diameter and then insert the foot hardware into the punched holes. Be sure to visit our YouTube channel to view Jess's detailed video tutorials for inserting this hardware. Carefully fuse small squares of interfacing over the foot prongs to protect your lining fabric. Let's prepare the zippers for the exterior pockets. You'll need the 2 shorter zippers and the zipper tab pieces. Fold each zipper tab in half with wrong sides together, matching the shorter edges. Slide 1 tab over each end of the zippers, so the cut end of the zipper is tucked inside. Each end of the zipper should be pushed tight against the fold of the tab. Hold the tabs in place with sewing clips. Return the stitch length to 3.5 millimeters and top stitch each tab to a zipper end 1/8 inch from the tab's raw edge. Now we can begin assembling the exterior zipper pockets. Follow your pattern to shape the side edges of the contrast pocket piece, drawing a line from the top mark to the bottom corners, creating angled sides. Trim away the excess fabric following the marked lines. Repeat the same steps for the remaining pocket piece and both pocket lining pieces. With right sides together, position the zipper with tabs below the top edge of the pocket piece. When the zipper is closed, the pull needs to be at the top. I've placed the zipper along the right hand angled edge as I'm right-handed. If you are left-handed, position the zipper along the left hand angle of the pocket piece. Using a zipper foot, baste the zipper in place with 1/4 inch seam allowance. With right sides together, layer the pocket lining over the pocket exterior and the zipper, sandwiching the zipper between the fabrics. Align all the edges and hold them together with sewing clips. Set a 2.5 mm stitch length, then sew along the angled edge with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, removing the clips as you sew. Fold both pocket pieces away from the zipper. Press along the folds, then hold the layers together with sewing clips while we go to the sewing machine. Now top stitch along the seam with 1/8 inch allowance. Remember to use your 3.5 mm stitch length for the top stitching. Next, smooth the layers, aligning the sides and the top and bottom cut edges. It's okay if the lining peeks out. Trim the extending pocket lining even with the angled pocket exterior. Now turn the layers right sides together and pin them together. Sew a 3/8 inch seam along the angled edges of the two pockets. Turn the pockets right side out. Press the seams and we're almost ready to attach them. If you're right-handed, mark in from the top right corner and the bottom right corner of the main exterior panel with removable pen or chalk on the right side. If you're left-handed, mark the same marks only on the left corners of the main exterior panel. And be sure to refer to your pattern for those exact measurements. Align the unsewn edge of the zipper tape wrong side up down along the marked line of the main exterior panel. Use pins or basting tape to hold the zipper tape in place. Sew the zipper tape in place, stitching through all the layers and using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Sew a second row of stitching 1/8 inch from the zipper tape edge. Smooth the pocket over, centering the top and bottom edges of the pocket to the main panel. Hold the layers together with pins or sewing clips. Baste across the top and bottom edges. Then top stitch 1/8 inch along the angled edge up to the zipper tabs and along the full length of the opposite angled pocket edge. Repeat these steps for the second main panel. And we can set these panels aside while we work on the exterior side pockets. Mark in from both top corners of the contrast side pocket piece and draw a line from top mark to bottom corners, creating angled sides. Trim away the excess fabric following the marked lines. Repeat the same steps for the remaining side pocket piece and both side pocket lining pieces. Now insert each female half of the magnetic snaps positioned according to your pattern on each main exterior side piece. Then insert the remaining male halves of the magnetic snaps into each pocket lining piece, again referring to your pattern. If you'd like more details on installing this hardware, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for video tutorials. The last step is to iron a scrap of fusible interfacing against the wrong side of the snaps to prevent the prongs from rubbing against your fabric. Place each exterior side pocket piece to a side pocket lining piece, wrong sides together. Pin or clip the layers together, and the snap should be located at the top of the pocket, basted along the top and bottom edges with a 1/4 inch allowance. With wrong sides together, fold each contrast side pocket trim piece in half, matching the long edges. Slide one trim piece over each top edge of a side pocket so the raw edges of the pocket are tucked inside. The top pocket edge should be pushed tight against the fold of the trim. Hold the layers together with basting tape and sewing clips. Top stitch both trim pieces in place 1/8 inch from the raw edges. Use a zipper or narrow foot to easily sew past the magnetic snaps. And we're ready for the next step. Place the side pockets over the exterior side panels, engaging the snaps. The pockets will be wider than the side panels at this point. Align and pin or clip the side edges of the pockets even with the side edges of the panel. While I'm at the work table, I'm going to fold and clip in 2 pleats centered along the bottom edge of the pocket. Check that the pockets are smooth and even with the bottom edge of the side panels. Baste the side and bottom edges with 1/4 inch allowances. And we can set the side panels aside for the time being. Now take the front and back facing pieces along with the invisible sew-in bar magnet, and on the wrong side of each facing piece, center 1/2 of the bar magnet. Make sure 1/2 the magnet is positive side down and the other half is negative side down so that they attract properly. Using a zipper or narrow foot, top stitch as closely as possible to the magnet. I'm using a small piece of foam slipped under the magnet so it doesn't stick to the machine plate. I'll reposition the foam so I don't accidentally stitch through it as I'm sewing my magnet in place. I trimmed the excess plastic close to the stitching off camera, so let's move on to the slip pocket. Fold the lining slip pocket piece in half with right sides together so the long edges meet. Align the top and side edges, then pin the layers together. Sew the short sides with 1/4 inch allowances, leaving the long edge open. Trim the corners, but do not cut through the stitching. Turn the slip pocket right side out and align the raw edges of the open top. Press the sides and the bottom fold for nice crisp edges. With wrong sides together, fold the long contrast trim piece in half, matching the long edges. Slide the trim piece over the top edge of the slip pocket so the raw edge is tucked inside. Again, the top edge of the pocket should be pushed tight against the fold of the trim. Hold the layers together with basting tape or sewing clips, or a combination of the two. Top stitch the trim in place 1/8 inch from the raw trim edges. Now this pocket is ready to be attached. First, we need to have one lining piece prepared. With right sides together, align and pin a long edge of one main facing piece with the top long edge of one lining piece. Sew together along the pinned edge using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Fold the facing piece away from the lining piece. Press along the seam for a smooth edge. Top stitch along the facing 1/8 inch from the seam. Lift up the magnetic bar or use the small piece of foam to separate the magnet from the machine's throat plate. Now, using a removable pen or piece of chalk, mark the slip pocket placement with vertical lines detailed in your pattern on the lining piece. Mark a second vertical line for the pocket division. Next, mark the slip pocket itself with one vertical line, measuring from the left-hand short end. With right sides up and the trim edge at the top, align the slip pocket side and bottom edges with the markings on the lining. Secure the edges in place with pins or basting tape. And before we go to the sewing machine, make small pleats along the bottom edge of both pocket sections as shown so the pockets are smooth and even with the lining underneath. Pin or tape baste the edges. Top stitch an 1/8 inch from the side seams of the pocket. Also top stitch following the slip pocket division line. This is a perfect spot to use a narrow foot. Finally, top stitch an 1/8 inch along the bottom pocket edge, securing the pleats. On the remaining lining piece, mark horizontal and vertical lines and then cut along the lines to create an indent along the top edge. Place the lining piece and the interfaced pocket facing right sides together and pin or clip, aligning the top edges. Now you're going to sew following along the indented section with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Try reducing your stitch length to 1.5 or 2 millimeters, especially at the corners. Then snip the inner corners of the seam allowance, being careful not to cut through the stitches. This will help the facing lay smooth and flat when you turn it. You can also trim the seam allowance to about an 1/8 inch wide if you wish. Turn and press the facing to the wrong side of the lining. The lining panel and the pocket facing are now wrong sides together. While your iron is hot, press the long bottom edge of each pocket lining piece a 1/2 inch to the wrong side. If you like really straight, accurate folds, try using a hot hammer or hot ruler for this step. Then keep the shorter pocket lining piece close by. Now place the remaining zipper right side up with the pull to the right and closing the zipper on the wrong side of the shorter pocket lining piece. Align the long raw edge of the pocket lining piece underneath the bottom zipper tape. Sew the aligned edges of the zipper tape and raw long edge of the pocket lining with a 1/4 inch seam. A zipper or narrow foot makes this really easy. Otherwise, remember to move the zipper pull out of the way as you sew. Press the pocket lining away from the zipper, keeping the zipper tape flat. Position the zipper unit so the lining is wrong side up and the zipper is right side up at the top edge. I found it helpful to add basting tape to the zipper tape to keep it from slipping. Position the zipper pull inside the indented area. Center the indented lining piece right side up over the zipper pocket unit, aligning the top edges. Top stitch an 1/8 inch along the indented seam. With right sides up, center the zipper lining unit over the remaining pocket piece, aligning the top edges. The bottom and side edges of the pocket pieces should be even with each other. Pin or clip the top pocket edges together and add a few pins to the side edges of the pocket pieces. Sew the longer pocket piece in place along the top edge with a 1/4 inch allowance, starting and stopping at the previous zipper top stitching. Move the lining away from the sides of the pocket pieces and sew along the full length of each side pocket edge with a 1/2 inch allowance. Do not sew the lower edge of the pocket. This bag will be turned right side out through that opening later. You're going to love how that works. Unfold the lining and press out any creases or wrinkles. Then, and this is important, unzip the zipper completely to prepare for turning the bag later. With right sides together, align one long edge of the remaining facing piece with the top edge of the lining piece. Pin or clip the aligned edges together. Sew together with a 3/8 inch allowance, removing the pins or clips as you go. Now fold the facing away from the lining and press along the seam. Then top stitch the facing an 1/8 inch along the seam line. And now we just need to add the side facings to the side linings. With right sides together, align one short edge of each side facing with the top short edge of each side lining piece. Sew together with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Fold the facing pieces away from the lining pieces and press the seam edges. Top stitch the facings an 1/8 inch from the seam. Now you're really going to see your Kayte bag progress. Let's start with the front, back, and base lining pieces. With right sides together, center one long edge of the lining base piece along the bottom edge of one lining piece and pin or clip together. While I'm here at the work table, I'm going to do the same for the second lining piece and the opposite long edge of the lining base. Sew along the aligned edges with 1/2 inch seam allowances, starting and stopping a 1/2 inch from the short edges of the base piece. Be sure to backstitch at the beginning and end of these seams, as this step will help create the boxed base later. With right sides together, align and pin or clip the top and side edges of the side lining pieces and the front and back lining pieces. Sew the side edges together with 1/2 inch seam allowances. With right sides together, align and pin or clip the top and side edges of the side lining pieces and the front and back lining pieces. Sew the side edges together with 1/2 inch seam allowances. Press the lining seams open. With right sides together, match and pin the bottom unsewn edges of the lining piece and the short edges of the lining base piece. Sew together with 1/2 inch seam allowances, starting and stopping at the back stitching of the adjacent base seams to create the boxed corners of the bag. Make sure to backstitch at each end. The wider seam allowance will make the lining slightly smaller and it will fit neatly into the exterior bag. Trim seam allowances to 1/4 inch to reduce the bulk. I'm going to add a handmade label as a last-minute design option. It is completely optional, but I think we each should all be proud of our craftsmanship and show it off. Now we're going to assemble the exterior bag, repeating the same process but using 3/8 inch seam allowances. Begin by attaching the front and back panels to the contrast base. Sew the seams at the base. Remember to backstitch as well as begin and end the stitching 3/8 inch from the ends. Then align and secure the side panels to the front and back panels with sewing clips. Now sew the side seams. Press the seams open. I'm just using my fingers. Then align and clip the side panels to the base panel to create the boxed corners. Sew the final 2 base seams. Check the seam allowances and trim excess foam from the seams if any got missed earlier. Turn the lining right side out, but leave the exterior wrong side out. With right sides together, put the lining inside the exterior, matching the side seams and upper raw edges. Use lots of sewing clips to hold the layers in place. Sew along the aligned top edges with the 3/8 inch seam allowance. Turn the bag right side out by pushing the fabric through the lower unsewn edge of the interior zipper pocket. Roll the seams and corners with your fingers to flatten them. Clip or pin the pressed bottom edges of the pocket lining pieces. Now simply edge stitch the pocket opening closed with an 1/8 inch allowance. I love how easy turning through the pocket is. Smooth the facing and lining inside the bag. Add sewing clips to help hold the edge layers in place. Top stitch around the upper edge of the bag with an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Trace or copy and then cut out the Kayte strap connector pattern from your pattern instructions. Use the pattern piece to shape the contrast strap connectors and also use the same pattern to shape the short ends of the contrast strap pieces. Pair 2 strap pieces wrong sides together, aligning the raw edges, and then tape baste or sewing clip the layers together. Top stitch an 1/8 inch from all edges on both straps. Mark the angled ends of the straps for a single rivet placement using the strap connector pattern. Slip 1 rectangle ring over each strap end and bring the shaped ends over the right side of the strap. Top stitch close to the rings using a zipper or narrowfoot at both ends of each strap. Alright, now you're ready to insert and set a small rivet in each strap end. The rivet not only holds the strap point in place, but it also looks great. Be sure to check out the rivet tutorial on our website for more details. Once the small rivets are set, fold each strap in half lengthwise, wrong sides together. Use several sewing clips to keep the edges aligned. At this point, you're kind of stuffing the inner layer of the strap into the fold. Top stitch an 1/8 inch from the strap edge following the previous top stitching. Begin and end the stitching a few inches from where the strap folds around the rectangle rings. Pair the connector pieces wrong sides together. Align the raw edges and glue baste, tape baste, or clip the layers securely. Top stitch an 1/8 inch from the edges of each paired connector piece. Use the connector pattern to mark and punch holes in both ends of each top stitch connector. Slip each connector through a rectangle ring. Refer to your pattern to mark the bag for rivet placement using the connector pattern, then punch the holes for the rivets. Now fold and position each connector over the bag edge, aligning the holes. Insert and set medium rivets to secure the straps to the bag. Add some extra flair with a coordinating tassel using the tassel cap hardware. Jess's video tutorial is so easy to follow, you'll find it on our YouTube channel.
You're finished! I hope you enjoy your Kayte bag as much as I've enjoyed sewing my bag with you. This bag was named after a beloved art teacher of mine who believed that art is for everybody and for every day. So I hope you use your Kayte bag every day, and I hope you share photos with us at Sally Tomato using hashtag Sally Tomato and hashtag Kayte Bag Patterns. And remember, Kayte does have an E in there right after the Y. So enjoy your Kayte bag. Thank you so much for sewing with me.